Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we're going to introduce a new node called the blend poses by Boolean, which will allow us to check a checkbox and kill off our character. Let's dive in and see how it works. Okay, so we want to get our character to die when we reduce the health down to 0. So the first place we're going to be looking at is our animation blueprint, because that is the place that we're playing our various animations. And we want to switch over essentially from playing, if we go over to our anim graph, we want to switch over from playing this blend space over into playing a death animation and basically to never go back from there. So the way we're going to do this is to use a new type of node called a blend by Boolean. So if we right click here and look for the different types of blend that we can get in here, I'm going to scroll to the top. There's a whole bunch of blend poses down here that it's selecting for me by default. Don't know why. But if we do a blend poses by Boolean, you can see quite clearly that we've got two options here, a true pose and a false pose. So basically what we'd want to be doing is to play our BS blend space locomotion animation when we are not dead. And otherwise, we want to play our dead animation as the true pose. And then here we've got some options for how quickly it's going to blend between the two animations when the Boolean value changes. Now, in our case, we're not going to have players resurrecting, so the most likely case is that we're just going to hit that Boolean once and not go back. So what do we need here? We need a death animation. So I'm going to right click and search for death and see if we can find a few ones here. We've got a death backwards, a death forward. So let's just have a look at the differences between those by going to our animation view, and we'll look for death in there just to preview those animations. So death backwards, let's have a look at, let's do that again. So, okay, it's being shot from behind and falling forward. So it's kind of the opposite of what I would expect. Death forward is probably the one we want, where you're being killed from in front. I think that's what it's trying to say. So let's go and open up the death forward. There you go. We kind of get shot and fall backwards. So that's the one I'm going to want. I'm just going to dock my shooter animation blueprint to the main window. And in here, we're going to look for death forward. And we're going to play that through the true pose and then hook up the output pin of the blend poses by Bool to the output pose. If we hit compile now, you should see it's playing the BS locomotion. If I hit the checkbox and recompile, you can see it is playing our death animation, but note it's looping. So one thing we can do here to prevent that is by selecting that node, the play death forward, we can uncheck the loop animation in our details pane over on the right and hit compile. And now it should play that death animation and then come to a rest at the end of it and stop, not go any further from there, which is exactly what we want here. It's time for your challenge to add a death Boolean. We've been controlling everything else via those variables on our animation blueprint. It's time to add a variable to the blueprint for death and whether we are dead or not. Set the blend based on this variable and then test it without compiling within the blueprint, or compile first, but you won't have to recompile every time you flip the switch. And you should be able to see it switch between our death animation and our movement animation. And with that information, you should be able to see whether the timings on that blend node are correct or not. So pause the video and have a go. Okay, welcome back. So hopefully this was fairly simple to do. Let's go into the variables in the My Blueprint pane, add a new variable. It's automatically a Boolean for me for some reason, and I'm just going to have this as is dead. That's going to be the state that we're going to then grab from the character in the next lecture, not in this lecture. I'm going to drag this into our anim graph, get is dead, and then I'm going to hook it up to our active value, like so. And now, if we compile, we should see isDead show up in the anim preview editor over on the right, bottom right. And if I check the isDead checkbox, then it goes ahead and switches from our locomotion to playing our death animation. Fantastic. So that's what I wanted to achieve in this lecture. And in the next lecture, we're going to hook that up to the actual gameplay.